Jade wakes slowly, wrapped in a warmth that feels unfamiliar. The sheets beneath her are cool and impossibly smooth. The air smells faintly of cologne and night rain. When she opens her eyes, the ceiling above her is too high, too elegant, edged with shadows cast by floor-to-ceiling windows. This is not her room. Her heart stutters as she pushes herself up, the city outside glowing in the early morning light. Everything here speaks of wealth, control, a life that does not belong to her. Her mind reaches for memories and finds nothing. "You're awake." The voice is calm, close. Jade turns her head. He's watching her from beside the bed, unmoving. Park Jin-Seok's presence fills the space without effort, still, composed, completely unbothered. His gaze lingers on her face as if he's already read every question she's about to ask. "Who are you?" she whispers. A faint smile touches his lips, not amused, not kind, knowing. "You don't remember," he says. Her pulse quickens. "What happened last night?" Instead of answering, he leans in, slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. She doesn't. His fingers brush her jaw, gentle but certain, and for a brief moment his lips touch hers, soft, unhurried, almost reverent. It feels familiar. He pulls back just enough to meet her eyes. "You chose that," he says quietly. "And I remember everything." The silence between them tightens. Jade realizes the danger isn't what she forgot, it's that he didn't. Park Jin-Seok does not panic. Jade notices it immediately, not just the absence of urgency, but the way calm seems to settle around him like a choice he makes every second. He moves with unhurried precision, rising from the bed without a glance at the clock, without asking questions he already knows the answers to. He pulls on a dark shirt, the fabric sliding over inked skin that tells stories she doesn't understand yet. Dragons, geometry, discipline carved into flesh. He buttons the cuffs slowly, deliberately, as if time bends to his will. Jade sits upright, clutching the sheet to her chest, watching him like a puzzle she's afraid to solve. "You don't need to rush," he says, not looking at her. His voice is steady, low. "No one is coming through that door." That should comfort her. It doesn't. "How can you be so sure?" she asks. He finally turns, leaning against the edge of the dresser. His gaze is level, thoughtful, as if weighing her question rather than dismissing it. "Because if they were," he says, "you would already hear them." The words land softly, the meaning does not. Jade swallows. "You talk like danger is routine." A corner of his mouth lifts, not amused, not kind, knowing. For some of us it is. He crosses the room and stops a careful distance away, close enough that she feels his presence, far enough that she doesn't feel trapped. The balance is precise, intentional. "You were safe here," he continues. "You still are." "Safe with you?" she asks. "With me," he confirms. No arrogance, no reassurance, just fact. She studies his face, sharp lines, unreadable eyes, a stillness that feels earned. This is not a man who proves himself with volume or force. This is someone who expects the world to adjust. "Why?" she asks. "Why help me?" His gaze flickers just briefly to the window overlooking the city. When he speaks again, there's something quieter beneath the control. "Because you didn't pretend to be someone else last night, and because you didn't ask me for anything." That surprises her. "I don't remember asking for nothing," she says carefully. "You didn't," he replied. "You just stayed." The air between them tightens, not with heat, but with meaning. Jade exhales. "I should leave." He nods once. "If you want to." There's no challenge in his tone, no test. The choice is real. She swings her legs over the side of the bed, searching for her clothes. Her hands shake despite herself. "Jade," he says softly. She looks up. His eyes hold hers, steady, intent. "If you walk out that door without understanding why you ended up here, you will still be followed." Her heart thuds. By who? By the same thing that brought you to my table last night. Fear. She hates how true that feels. He steps aside, clearing the path to the door. "I don't stop people from leaving," he adds. "I only offer them a place to stand." Jade hesitates, just for a second longer than she means to, and Park Jin-Seok watches her with the patience of a king who already knows the world will come back to him. Jade doesn't remember leaving the penthouse. She remembers standing in the hallway with her shoes in her hands, the door closing behind her with a quiet finality. She remembers the elevator ride down, her reflection in the mirrored walls looking calmer than she felt. And then the city swallows her, bright and indifferent, as if nothing extraordinary has just happened. It isn't until she's halfway home that the fragments begin to surface. Not memories, sensations. A low hum of music vibrating through her bones, warm light spilling across polished wood, the weight of a gaze she felt before she ever saw him. Jade slows her steps, pressing her fingers into her palm as if grounding her might stop whatever is rising. She remembers laughter, not hers, someone else's, distant. She remembers a glass in her hand, untouched, sweating against her skin. And then a voice, calm, familiar in a way that makes her chest tighten. "You don't have to pretend here." The words echo without context. Jade shakes her head, trying to dislodge them. She tells herself it's nothing, just a mind grasping for patterns where there are none. But her body disagrees. There's a strange steadiness in her limbs, a quiet warmth behind her ribs that doesn't match the panic she expects to feel. Back in her apartment, she drops her keys onto the counter and leans against it, breathing slowly. The silence feels louder than the city ever did. She closes her eyes. Another fragment slips through. A hand, warm and steady, hovering near hers without touching. A choice offered, not demanded. The faintest brush of fingers, testing, asking. Her breath catching, not in fear, but recognition. Jade opens her eyes sharply. "No," she whispers to the empty room. She presses her palms to her face. Whatever happened last night, she knows one thing for certain. It wasn't chaos. Chaos leaves bruises. Chaos leaves regret. This feels contained. That's what unsettles her most. She moves through her apartment on autopilot, changing clothes, splashing water on her face. Her reflection stares back, eyes alert, searching. She doesn't look like someone who lost control. She looks like someone who made a decision she can't remember making. Her phone buzzes. The sound slices through her thoughts. For a brief, irrational second, she expects his name to appear on the screen. It doesn't, just a missed call from an unknown number, then another. Her stomach twists. "Fear," he had said, "the thing that brought you to my table." Jade sits on the edge of her bed, phone clenched in her hand. She thinks of the way Park Jin-Seok stood aside and let her choose, the way he didn't follow her, didn't stop her, didn't need to. That, more than anything, feels dangerous. She exhales slowly and lets herself remember one last thing, not an image, but a feeling. Calm. Not hers, borrowed. Held around her like a promise she didn't know she'd accepted. Jade doesn't know what she forgot, but she knows it mattered. And somewhere in the city, a man who doesn't panic knows it too. Jade feels it before she sees it. The unease settles low in her stomach as she steps out of the cafe, the warmth of the afternoon doing nothing to loosen the tightness in her chest. Seoul moves around her in practiced rhythm, voices, footsteps, traffic, but for the first time since the morning, the city doesn't feel neutral. It feels watched. She tells herself she's imagining it. Jet lag, a rough night, too many thoughts layered on top of each other. She adjusts the strap of her bag and starts walking, keeping her pace even, her posture casual. That's when her phone vibrates. No name, just a number she doesn't recognize. Her thumb hovers over the screen. She knows better than to answer unfamiliar calls. She's built a life around not answering them. The phone stops buzzing. 2 seconds later, it lights up again. Her pulse quickens. She ducks into a side street, the noise of the main road fading behind her. The buildings here are closer, the shadows deeper. She leans against the brick wall and exhales, steadying herself. Finally, she answers. "Hello?" For a moment, there's only silence. Then, Jade. Her name, spoken like it's still owned. The world narrows. She hasn't heard Ethan Cole's voice in months, not since she blocked him, not since she crossed an ocean and told herself distance could be protection. Her fingers tighten around the phone. "Don't call me." He chuckles softly, like she said something unreasonable. "You disappeared. That's not polite." "I told you I was done," she says. Her voice stays level, even as her heart pounds. "I don't want anything to do with you." "You never mean that," he replies easily. "You just get scared." The word slices deeper than she expects. Jade closes her eyes. Images flash. Arguments that turned quiet and sharp. Apologies that came too late. The way fear had learned her name before love ever did. "I'm not scared," she says, though it feels like a lie. There's a pause. When he speaks again, his tone shifts, curious, probing. "So who was he?" Her breath catches. "What do you mean?" "You don't hide as well as you think," Ethan says. "Someone important crossed your path. I can hear it." Jade's thoughts snap back to a calm voice, a steady gaze, a man who didn't chase, didn't demand. Her silence answers for her. Ethan sighs, almost disappointed. "You always did look for shelter in the wrong places." Anger flares, sharp and brief. "Stay away from me." "I'm just trying to keep you safe," he says. "You know how dangerous it is when you don't belong." The call ends. Jade stares at her phone long after the screen goes dark. Her hands tremble now, no hiding it. The city feels too open, too exposed. She thinks of Park Jin-Seok's words. "If you walk out without understanding why you ended up here, you will still be followed." Fear, the thing that brought her to his table. Jade pushes herself away from the wall and steps back into the street, heart racing. She doesn't know how Ethan found her. She doesn't know how close he really is. But for the first time, she understands something with painful clarity. Leaving didn't make her free. It just reminded her what she's running from. And somewhere between fear and choice, a calm, unpanicked presence waits, offering a place to stand she's not sure she can refuse. Jade spends the next few days pretending nothing happened. She returns to routines she knows by heart. Early mornings, long walks, quiet cafes where no one looks twice at her. She answers messages from Danielle with practiced normalcy, laughs at the right moments, listens without really hearing. She tells herself that the penthouse was an anomaly, a strange pause in a life that has learned how to keep moving. She does not say his name. She avoids the part of the city where the buildings rise higher and the air feels sharper. She chooses routes that feel ordinary, safe. She tells herself that calm doesn't mean danger has teeth, and that one composed man with unreadable eyes doesn't get to live in her head rent-free. At night, denial works best. She cleans. She reorganizes drawers that don't need reorganizing. She lets a show play in the background while she stares at her phone, refusing to check for numbers she knows won't be there. When sleep finally comes, it's light and easily broken. That's when he shows up. Not as a face, never that clearly, but as a presence, a steadiness that settles beside her thoughts. the memory of a voice that never rushed her, the space he gave her, exact and intentional, the way he didn't follow. She wakes up with a quiet ache behind her ribs and no language for it. During the day, she tells herself it's relief, that she's grateful to be out of that world, untouched by it. She reminds herself of the risks she knows too well, power that bends rules, protection that costs more than it promises, safety that comes with strings you don't see until they're tight. She knows better. And yet, she finds herself replaying small, harmless details, the way he buttoned his cuffs like time was negotiable, the certainty in his voice when he said she was safe, the choice he gave her, real, unforced. Jade hates that most of all. She wants him to have been careless, arrogant, predictable. She wants him to reduce him to a story she can dismiss. But he isn't any of those things. Mid-week, she almost deletes a message draft she didn't realize she wrote. No words, just a blank thread with a familiar number saved nowhere. Her thumb hovers, then retreats. She closes the app like it burned her. Denial is easier when she's busy, when her thoughts are loud enough to drown out the quiet pull towards something unresolved. Still, the city keeps offering reminders. A black car idling too long at a light, a tailored suit passing her on the sidewalk, the scent of cologne trailing behind, a calm voice on the train that makes her turn her head before she can stop herself. It's never him. By the end of the week, Jade understands what denial really is, not forgetting, but choosing not to look directly at the thing that changed you. She stands at her window one evening, watching the city settle into night. The lights come on one by one, steady and patient. Somewhere out there is a man who doesn't panic, who waits without urgency, who offered her a place to stand and asked for nothing in return. Jade exhales slowly. She tells herself she doesn't need him. She tells herself she won't go back. And for the first time since that morning, the denial feels like a decision she's making, rather than one she can keep. The summons comes quietly. No dramatic ringtone, no unknown number flashing warnings across her screen, just a single message that appears while Jade is standing in line for coffee, half listening to the murmur of voices around her. Tonight, 10 o'clock, come alone. No name, no explanation. She knows who it's from. Her pulse stutters, then steadies in a way that surprises her. She reads the message again, as if it might rearrange itself into something harmless. It doesn't. Danielle says something beside her, laughing about nothing in particular, and Jade nods at the right moment. She finishes her coffee, walks home, goes through the motions of the afternoon with a strange calm pressing down on her thoughts. Denial doesn't survive contact with certainty. She spends an hour arguing with herself, lists reasons she shouldn't go, danger, power, Ethan's voice still echoing in her head. The way Jin-Seok's world feels like a door that only opens once. And then there's the other list, the one she doesn't write down. Answers, control, the feeling of being seen without being chased, the quiet authority that didn't ask her to beg. At 9:30, she's dressed in black, simple, unassuming. She checks her reflection once, then turns away before doubt can find a foothold. The car that pulls up to the curb is unmistakable, dark, polished, waiting like it's been there all along. The driver doesn't speak, just opens the door. The city blurs past the windows as Jade sits with her hands folded in her lap, heart beating steady and loud all at once. She tells herself she's not walking into a trap. She tells herself she's choosing. When the car stops, the building in front of her is all glass and shadow, rising cleanly into the night. Security moves with quiet efficiency, parting without question as she steps inside. No one asks her name. She's led through corridors that swallow sound, into a private space overlooking the city. The lights are lower here, controlled, intentional. Park Jin-Seok is already waiting. He stands near the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city like it owes him something. He turns when she enters, his gaze settling on her with the same calm certainty she remembers. "You came," he says. She lifts her chin. "You summoned me." A faint smile touches his mouth. "I offered you a choice. You didn't give me much notice. I didn't think you needed it." He steps closer, not invading her space, just enough to be felt. The air shifts, charged but restrained. "You've been busy avoiding me," he continues. Her breath catches. "You don't know that." "I do," he says easily, "because if you wanted to forget, you wouldn't be here." Silence stretches between them, thick with everything unsaid. Jade feels it again, that strange steadiness she borrowed once and hasn't quite returned. "Why now?" she asks. "Because the world you're pretending not to see is moving, and because you don't belong on the outside of this anymore." Her heart pounds. "You don't get to decide where I belong." His gaze sharpens, not angry, not offended, interested. "No," he agrees, "but I get to decide who I let back in." He gestures to the city below, then back to her. "Tonight, you listen, you ask your questions, you decide." Jade meets his eyes, fear and curiosity colliding into something dangerously alive. And just like that, she steps fully back into his world, aware that nothing about it will be quiet again. Jade realizes she's being assessed the moment the door closes behind her, not by Park Jin-Seok, he already knows what he's looking at, but by the men waiting inside the room. 3 of them stand near the long table, spaced with intention like pieces on a board that has seen many games played to their end. Jin-Seok moves first, unhurried, taking his place at the head of the table. He doesn't introduce her right away, he doesn't need to. His silence is the signal. "This is Choi Min-guk," he says, nodding to the man closest to the door. Min-guk is solid in a way that feels immovable. Broad shoulders, clean-cut hair, eyes that never stop scanning. When he looks at Jade, it's not curiosity she feels, but calculation, the kind that measures exits, angles, outcomes. He inclines his head once, respectful, then returns to his watchful stillness. "Lee Sang-hoon," Jin-Seok continues. Sang-hoon offers a faint smile, the only one in the room. He's leaner, sharper, fingers already moving as if counting invisible numbers. His gaze lingers on Jade a beat longer than Min-guk's did, not threatening, evaluating. She gets the sense he's already placing her somewhere in a system she can't see. "And oh Dae-sung," Jin-Seok finishes. Dae-sung doesn't smile. He doesn't nod. He simply looks at her, eyes dark and unblinking, as if daring her to look away first. There's a coiled tension in him, a readiness that makes Jade's spine straighten on instinct. These men are not decoration. They are gravity. Jin-Seok gestures for Jade to sit. She does, keeping her movements calm, deliberate. She can feel their attention follow her, not predatory, but precise. "She's here to listen, nothing more," Jin-Seok says. Sang-hoon arches a brow. "For now." Jade meets his gaze. "I don't intend to be a liability." Min-guk's eyes flick to Jin-Seok, a question, unspoken. Jin-Seok answers it without looking at him. "She won't be." The certainty in his voice settles the room. Dae-sung shifts just slightly, as if resetting a stance he hadn't realized he'd taken. Sang-hoon leans back. "You brought her in fast. Time is not generous tonight, and she deserves context." Jade's chest tightens at the word deserves. "What context?" she asks. Jin-Seok looks at her then, really looks, checking her steadiness, her resolve. He gives a single nod, the kind that explains leaving won't keep you safe and why staying might. Silence follows, heavy, intentional. Min-guk steps forward. "Your shadow from home is moving," his voice says low, asking questions, touching places he shouldn't. Jade's breath catches. "You've been watching him?" "We watch everyone," Dae-sung says flatly. "Some just don't realize it." Jin-Seok raises a hand. The room stills. "You are not here to be frightened," he says to Jade. "You're here to understand the board." He turns back to his men. She stays. No one argues. Jade feels it then, the shift. Not acceptance, alignment. The inner circle closes ranks, and for the first time, she understands what stepping into this world really means. Not protection without cost, but power that chooses its own. The truth doesn't arrive all at once. It settles in slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor as the light shifts. Jade listens as the conversation moves around her, not in coded threats or raised voices, but in measured exchanges that assume authority as a given. Names are mentioned without explanation, locations referenced without detail, decisions spoken as conclusions, not proposals. She understands then that this isn't a business meeting, it's governance. Jin-Seok stands at the center of it, without posturing, without command. He doesn't argue, he doesn't persuade. When he speaks, the room adjusts. When he falls silent, everyone waits. Min-guk reports, Sang-hoon calculates, Dae-sung watches the edges, and Jin-Seok decides. The realization lands hard enough to make Jade's fingers curl against her palm. This isn't a man who owns influence. This is a man influence answers to. Her gaze drifts to him, how he stands, relaxed but alert, the subtle distance he keeps from everyone else in the room. Respect flows toward him naturally, unquestioned. Not fear, not loyalty bought or demanded. Inheritance. Power that didn't need to announce itself because it had never been challenged. Jade swallows. "You're not just involved, are you?" The room goes quiet. Sang-hoon's expression turns curious. Min-guk stiffens. Dae-sung's eyes sharpen. Jin-Seok looks at her, calm as ever. There's no surprise in his gaze, no irritation. "No," he says, "I'm not just involved." He steps closer, lowering his voice, not to hide the truth, but to give it weight. This family existed before the city learned how to pronounce its own name. Jade's breath catches. "You're," she stops herself, choosing her words carefully. "You're the top." A pause, then a slight inclination of his head, confirmation, not pride. "Mafia royalty," Sang-hoon says lightly, as if discussing lineage at a formal dinner. "Old money, old rules." Jade's pulse roars in her ears. Everything clicks. The penthouse, the calm, the way doors opened without question, the way Ethan's name had already been spoken in this room like a problem with a solution waiting. "And you didn't think I deserved to know this before?" she asks, voice steady through sheer effort. Jin-Seok studies her. "I wanted to know if you would listen before you reacted." "And," she challenges, "you are still standing," he replies. She is, barely, but she is. Jade peeks a slow breath. "So, when you say you can protect me," "I mean it," he says simply, "not as a favor, as jurisdiction." The word sends a chill down her spine. Jurisdiction. This isn't about hiding her, or moving her, or running. This is about claiming space and daring the world to cross a line. She looks away, pacing a few steps as her thoughts race. Fear presses in, sharp and familiar, but beneath it, something else stirs. Anger, resolve, the exhaustion of always being hunted. She turns back to him. "And if I say no?" Jin-Seok doesn't hesitate. Then you leave, tonight, safely. No threat, no leverage. But, he adds quietly, the world won't stop moving because you close your eyes. Silence stretches between them, heavy with everything that can't be undone. Jade meets his gaze, heart pounding. This is the truth about him, not just dangerous, inevitable. And standing in front of him, Jade knows one thing with terrifying clarity. Once you see a king for what he is, pretending otherwise is the most dangerous lie of all. Jin-Seok waits until the room empties. Minguk closes the door behind them with a quiet finality. Sang-hoon's footsteps fade down the hall. Dae-sung lingers a moment longer, eyes flicking to Jade in a way that feels less like a warning and more like a promise before he too disappears. The silence that follows is different, thinner, charged. Jade exhales, not realizing she's been holding her breath. "You planned that," she says, not accusing, observant. "I planned for you to hear what you needed to hear," Jin-Seok replies, "and for you to decide without an audience." She accepts the glass. Their fingers don't touch, but the space between them feels measured, intentional, proximity without pressure. "What happens now?" she asks. He studies her for a long moment, as if aligning pieces only he can see. "Now," he says, "I make you an offer." Her pulse steadies, oddly. "I'm listening." "You remain in Seoul. You stop trying to disappear. You work in my corporate division, contracts, analysis, international accounts, clean, legal, visible enough to matter." "And the rest?" she asks. "And the rest," he continues, "is protection." She swallows. "From Ethan?" "From anyone who thinks you are unclaimed," he says, voice even. "From the kind of chaos that mistakes silence for weakness." The word unclaimed lands heavier than it should. "This isn't charity," she says quietly. "No," he agrees, "it's alignment." Jade steps closer to the window, the city unfolding below them like a circuit board of light. "And proximity?" she asks, glancing back. "That's part of the deal, too, isn't it?" He doesn't deny it. "You would be near me, close enough to be protected, close enough to be known." Her chest tightens. "That sounds like a leash." "It can be," he says, "or it can be a shield." She turns to face him fully. "And the cost?" Jin-Seok steps into her space, not crowding, not retreating, just there. His presence settles like gravity. "You tell me the truth," he says. "You don't disappear without warning, and when I say something is dangerous, you believe me." "That's it?" she asks. "For now." The honesty in that chills her more than any threat. She searches his face for hunger, for triumph, for the gleam of ownership. She finds none of it. What she sees is resolve, patience, the certainty of a man who doesn't need to hurry because time has always made room for him. "If I say yes," she says, "my life changes." "Yes." "And if I say no?" He considers. "Then I will still get you home safely tonight." Her throat tightens. "You'd just let me walk away?" "I don't collect people," he says softly. "I give them a place to stand." The quiet between them stretches. Jade feels the pull of it, the promise of steadiness, the relief of no longer running, the dangerous comfort of choosing something powerful. She steps closer without meaning to, close enough to feel his warmth, close enough that the memory of a kiss, gentle, unhurried, flickers between them. He doesn't move. That, more than anything, tells her this choice is real. Jade lifts her chin. "I need time." Jin-Seok nods once. "You have tonight." He reaches into his jacket and places a card in her palm. Heavy, minimal, his name embossed, nothing else. "Come tomorrow," he says, "or don't." As she closes her fingers around the card, she realizes the offer isn't just protection, it's power. and standing this close to it, Jade knows the most dangerous part isn't saying yes, it's wanting to. Jade stood still long after the room had emptied, the air humming with the echo of everything she hadn't said. Fear had always been her shadow, close, obedient, whispering warnings at every turn. It told her when to stop, when to lower her eyes, when to choose silence over consequence. Tonight, it felt thinner somehow, like mist burning off under a rising sun. She crossed the marble floor slowly, fingertips grazing the back of a chair as if to steady herself. Nothing had changed in the room. The lights were the same. The walls held the same quiet authority. And yet something inside her had shifted, subtle but undeniable. She could feel it in the way her breath no longer caught in her throat, in the way her thoughts didn't scatter at the first hint of danger. Jade had spent most of her life surviving by staying small, watching, learning the rules without ever asking who made them. Curiosity had always been the risky impulse, the one she buried deepest. Questions led to attention, attention led to consequences. That was the math she'd lived by. But now the questions were rising on their own. Who really held power here? Why did some doors open while others stayed locked? And most dangerously of all, what would happen if she stepped through one without permission? She moved toward the window and looked down at the city below. From this height, everything looked orderly, controlled, a lie she recognized well. She knew what existed in the shadows between the lights, the bargains made in silence, the choices that rewrote people's lives without ever asking their consent. She had been brushed by that world before, close enough to feel its pull, far enough to pretend she was untouched. That pretense was gone. A memory surfaced, small, almost insignificant. Jade as a child taking apart a broken radio just to see what lived inside it. Her hands had been shaking then too, not from fear of punishment, but from anticipation. She remembered the thrill of discovering wires and circuits, realizing that something mysterious could also be understood. That same feeling stirred now. Fear still spoke, but its voice had changed. It no longer commanded, it advised, it listed risks instead of issuing threats. And curiosity, quiet, patient curiosity, answered back. It reminded her that knowledge was its own kind of shield, that understanding the game didn't mean you had to lose yourself to it. Jade straightened, shoulders back, spine aligning as if her body made a decision before her mind fully caught up. She didn't feel brave. Bravery was loud and dramatic. What she felt was alert, awake, willing to see what came next instead of flinching away from it. When she finally turned from the window, her reflection stared back at her in the dark glass. The same face, the same eyes, but there was a new steadiness there, a spark that hadn't existed before. Not defiance, not recklessness, intent. She reached for her coat, already knowing that once she stepped out of this room, there would be no clean return to ignorance. Paths would narrow, choices would carry weight, but for the first time that reality didn't terrify her. It intrigued her. Jade took a breath and moved forward, curiosity leading where fear once ruled, and crossed the invisible line she'd been standing behind all her life. This is where tonight's story ends, but the secrets never do. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden power, the silent strength, and the moments that changed everything, make sure to subscribe to Boss Hidden Chronicles. New stories drop here, where power hides in plain sight and the unexpected always rises. Like, share, and tell us what story you want uncovered next. Until next time, stay curious and watch closely.